in there on this end and, you know, tie a swivel in there, but I think it's just as easy to just tie them together. And with this soft flexible wire, I've played around with back-to-back unis.
Right.
Take the wire, and this is 90 pound, and you can do 3 or 4 turns, then you kind of pull it tight, come around here with your fluoro.
Same number.
Gonna pull up there nice and tight. You can trim them off really nice and, you know, nice and close, so that it's not really going to go through your guides anyway, because it's just going to be a small trace, but you know, you just don't have anything hanging in the water. So, you know, and that's a really, you're only going to use this much.
Right.
Good,
It's just something to keep the fish that are attacking the jig itself from the teeth from cutting
that's all.
the mono.
Yeah, that's all. And there's a lot of knots you can tie here too. You know, I've played around with, just for consistency for me and quickness.
Right.
I do a little quick three turn uni, and, you know, slide it down and pull it tight, and that's it.
Clean, smooth connection, and low vis.
And you know, you look at that, and that's not going to hurt the action of the jig at all, because it's really as flexible, you know, as the fluorocarbon, if not even a little softer than fluorocarbon. And then these are rigged with split rings on them, because they have little welded rings and swivels and stuff to make them spin easy.
Right.
So you just take and, you know, take your little split ring tool and open it up, slide it on there. You know, see, so I mean, it basically hangs just like, you know, the standard cord hooks do, because that's the whole idea. Now, when you hook the fish, you got a direct connection here, and the jig is swinging free.
Right.
But yeah, they're not going to cut you off in that system. There are a lot of options in the butterfly jig system. We have jigs to fish 30 feet of water. We have jigs to fish 300 feet of water, and everywhere in between. And there's certain things for vertical presentation, and we've added an element for more of a horizontal presentation, or concentrating on the mid-water column. So really, now there's the ability to focus on the very bottom, or to focus on the mid-water column, or even to focus on surface.
You know, one of the key components to bottom fishing is that you don't want to move the jig too fast, number one, and number two, because you're fishing for bottom fish, you want to keep the jig near the bottom. So again, your motion is basically about this speed, you know, depending on your drift and your depth of water. And then when it gets up to about a third of the depth off the water column, for example, if you're fishing in 150 feet of water, I would drop the jig to the bottom, work it up 50 feet off the bottom, and drop it back down again, and repeat the process over and over again. That's if you're targeting bottom fish. If you're looking for more of the pelagics and stuff, there's several things you can do. You can fish the standard jig, but you're just increasing your jig in motion, and maybe a little bit more aggressive with the rod tip, and you're winding the jig all the way from the bottom to the surface and dropping it down and repeating the process. Another way you can target the pelagics is with a long jig. And the long jig, because of the way it glides, you know, it really needs a very kind of a medium heavy to a heavy action rod to get that jig to kick. And it's a little more of a pop. So in other words, your motion with the long jig is that pop, slack line for a second, pop, slack line for a second, pop, slack line for a second. And really, that's the difference between the two systems. The bottom fish, you're fishing the standard jig, more rhythmic, keeping the jig near the bottom. The pelagics, you're speeding up the retrieve, or you're using the long jig. So Fife, that's a different style jig than what I'm used to seeing, right?
Yeah, you know, you're asking about the difference in them. You know, this is what we call the long jig, versus this is kind of the standard butterfly that we started with. And the reason we came out with the long style jig is in situations where you get like a lot of current or really fast drift, the long jig will actually work a little bit better, because even with a lot of angle on the line, the long jig can glide literally horizontal. So it can go way out this way as much as 3 to 4 feet, and then you can bring it back horizontal, the same distance. I don't know of another lure that, you know, 40, 50, 60 feet down, you can actually make move horizontal. Whereas the standard jig, the idea is, you know, being real vertical, is for it to move like this up through the water column or back down the water column. So, you know, just a different presentation. And, you know, what we found, especially with the long jig, is when it's moving this way, a lot of your mid water column fish really seem to like that. Tunas really seem to like it. You know, kingfish, wahoos, that kind of stuff. Really, in the right situations, they like the standard jig too, but in certain situations, just that whole thing kind of coming at them just like that, I think it just makes them open their mouth and just like eat it. You know, this is a 4,000 size reel.
Right.
And this is a 7-foot medium light on the rod. And really this is ideal for anywhere from like 55 to 110 gram jig, which is a smaller jig. And really you can do two things with this. And that is you can fish shallower water, you know, 60, 70 feet for, you know, your smaller type fish. Or if you know there's fish in the mid column that you want to catch that you're not going to go any deeper. And you might be in 200 feet of water, but you're only going to target those fish that are in 60, 70 feet of water.
Right.
And you don't have to worry about getting cut off on the wreck or the reef or something like that. This is a lot of fun. And, you know, I put 40 or 50 pound braided line on it, 50 pound fluorocarbon, and then we did a trace of, I think this is like 70 pound, you know, flexible wire. And we got the wire hook, 110 gram jig. And, you know, stuff like this is really a lot of fun to fish.
Sweet. Nice. That's perfect. You know, how to pick the outfit that's right for you really is almost quite simple, and it correlates to jig size, fish size, and water depth. In other words, your medium to medium light action rods are for your smallest jigs, and your, you know, medium-sized fish and relatively shallow water, maybe 70 feet. Your medium to medium heavy action rods are for your bigger jigs, you know, your larger fish, and, you know, conversely deeper water. And then your heavies and X-heavies and XX-heavy action rods really correlate to the largest jigs and the biggest fish and your deepest water. Oh my
Look
God.
at the size of that!
No way! No way!
That's enormous. Look at it! Look at that!
The thing that opened my eyes anyway to the whole system was the ability to really go and explore different territories without ever using bait. You know, in the Keys we're very used to you know, getting bait in the morning and getting chum and setting up on a spot and anchoring and building that whole process. So, you know, you kind of had to get the mindset to say, I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to go to a completely new area. I'm going to run grids, I'm going to look at my machine, and I'm going to drop these little silver things down to the bottom and trust that they're going to catch what's down there. And that really kind of opened the door, for me anyway, just to go exploring, you know. So you can pick a spot, low impact on your time, low impact on your resources, and you know, really map out an area and drop these lures to the bottom and catch a bunch of different species of fish. You know, you get a certain mark on the recorder, you drop it down, boom, you catch a Jack Crevalle. Fun, yes, but not your target species. You move on, you get another mark on the machine, you know, you drop your jig down again, boom, here's a mutton snapper or a grouper. You know, you kind of start tightening up your grids in that area, and all of a sudden you find the honey hole that you really want to spend most of your time in. So that's what the Butterfly did for me. It just let me hit a bunch of different spots to find the one that I'm looking for.
People have really opened their minds to fishing in a different way than they're used to, and that they're having success with that. And, you know, especially in saltwater fishing, I think that's really an exciting thing, because there's so many different techniques and species that people can find and can catch when they open their mind to using a new technique.